My name is John Griffiths, and I was born on the Worcestershire Herefordshire borders, where I still live, which is in the middle of the hop growing country. My first recollection of hop picking was about a 10-year-old going with my uncle to fetch the pickers in an old cattle lorry from Prince's End in Tipton, Dudley. And the joke was they all used to have huge packing cases, as light as a feather. But when they went back 6 weeks later, they were all full, heavy, with potatoes, apples, and you name it, they collected it. We used to go down as thing when our neighbours was drying their hops in our hop kiln. In those days it was coal-fired hop drying with sulphur and thing, and we used to go down there and help. But looking back years later, I think we were more of a hindrance, because we always wanted to help but could never see anything. As 10 or 12-year-olds, you'll never see anything through. And I was born at a great time of change in the hop industry. Everybody had pickers and everything like that. And all my generation got called up for their national service. And the 2 years I was away in Germany, which we only came home once or twice, when I came back there was huge changes. The Bruff manufacturing company had sprung up in Suckley. It was only a small, very small factory when I left. And Albert Brooks was a designer, and he developed this hop picking machine, and it was just taking off. So I was involved, because we were the local haulier, in delivering them. Mainly we took them to Kent, a few to Hampshire. But what I remember most was when Albert Brooks, that was the designer, he was a very clever man, suffered from ill health, and I always think he was like R.J. Mitchell from the Spitfire fame. He had one great idea and he stuck to it, and it went right from the first time out. And everything was running late and the country was in chaos with strikes and work to rule. So I can always remember as a 20-year-old driving a lorry from Harwich to the Hook of Holland, taking these machines to bypass the docks to get them out into Czechoslovakia, which was behind the Iron Curtain then, in time for that season, because everything was running late. And it was very big business, very big business. The next year we took them to Hull, where they went on barges all the way up the Rhine to deliver them. And then the next year after that, they got it more organised, so they were broke down smaller pieces and put in packing cases. Where they finished up, I can't just remember. So we were all just in a few 10 years. The hop picking industry changed from manual labour to machines, and all the hop pickers out of the Midlands just disappeared. Also, I was involved in hauling the hops, right from the early age of 10, where I used to go and help. I remember all the farmer grumbling at me because I was walking over his pockets with my muddy boots. But I soon learnt to respect their wishes. And I was involved in the hauling hops then for 30 years, I should think, till it all changed again and it went to bales. And I expect there's not many people alive today who's hauled as many hop pockets or has put as many on a lorry as I have. But the bales, when they went to bales, it was chaos. There was 3 people making the bales, and they were all different sizes. So if you came to take them to the brewery, you couldn't match the loads up. But Wigan Richardson's then developed a system where they broke it down, and so they finished up one pocket of hops would finish up in a little cardboard box. Yeah, well, he always does remind me of the film, like he was a suspicious image of Mitchell, like a R.J. Mitchell. I didn't know him, I've only seen him on film, like, but he was on the telly, like in the film they made of him, like, and he would leave it to the last minute to design anything. You know, well, we were waiting to finish this, you know, and he built that airplane, didn't he, from scratch, and it went perfect, like. And Albert Brooks was the same, like several other people. Heinz has built a hot picking machine, but it wasn't always had too many snags. Like it wouldn't. Albert, as far as I know, because I missed 2 years of my life, like, and that 2 years is a big time. 18 to 20, you're developing, aren't you? And we were late developers, weren't we? Because there was no telly or nothing like that. Like wireless was almost, yeah, a portable wireless. So we didn't develop so fast, did we? Like the children are streetwise a lot quicker than I was on other people. Look, so it's I didn't know Albert Brooks. I see his hot picking machine, because they used to put them on wheels, put an axle underneath the first hot picking machine, put a bit of a chassis, and tow them behind them. I think an old army 4x4 at about 5 or 6 mile an hour when they were taking them. Yeah. I have seen some photographs somewhere of them.
So tell us, what was Albert Brooks like? Because we didn't get any of that on film just now, so...
Well, what does he look like? What is he like? Very, very quiet, suffered from ill health, grey-haired, glasses, and he had to live in a special bungalow, with like a bit like a sanatorium. Like, I don't get what his chest or something was, whatever they got in those days. Look, but he was very, very good to the workforce. His workforce was very, and when he was behind, they would stop on late at night. Because I remember my father once, when they were working late and the factory people came round, and all the women were there, and they were not supposed to work that many hours. They was all hurrying them into the ladies' toilet. It's out of sight, and they had to stop there while the factory, after 10 o'clock at night, was mooching round. Look, no, we haven't got any women here. Yeah, but of course it was... It's like everything was kind of left to the last minute. Like,
what do you know about Alan Jenkins? Can you use his name in your answer? So
well, I only know, like, he was one. I think he was about the only draftsman, or well, I think he was qualified as a draftsman. He was in the drawing office. We see very little of him. So I know him, because I said when he had permission to build. Albert Jeans, who was the foreman, his daughter Albert Jeans had married my younger brother, and he was works foreman. Albert Jeans was, and I'll never see much of Alan Jenkins. Like, he came down in his best clothes, wore a suit and tie and everything like that. Like, and. So we didn't see much. I didn't see much of Alan Jenkins.
Were you the main haulier then for the Bruff?
Well, we had 2 lorries on contract to them. The Fred Boucher would do the local. He had 1 lorry. He was a coal in little, like the general haulier, and he would do. He came abroad with us, but he would. Well, he must have been, when I knew him, he must have been in his late 50s, 60s or something like that. Like, so we were the main haulier, like.
Can you tell us about packing your trucks with the pockets? Because you just
that's gone now. I can't say that. That's just an everyday occurrence, wasn't it, to me?
Can you just tell us what tools you used? And you also described it as it looks beautiful when you've done it.
Yeah, did you do anything with that photograph of Malvern?
Not yet, but I'm going to.
No, well, if you look at that load, what Morris Parry, who worked for me, and you'll see his pockets are on. Nothing. He hadn't got that eye. I took pride in putting mine on. You'll see mine put on precision square, but then you see that one of Morris Parry, he was all right, but he put them on. But you see the difference If his were like one pocket's like this and one pocket's like that, I had mine own thing like that. Yeah, it was. You want to be young and you wanted to be young and fit, holding pockets. It wasn't a young man's job because you were stood 12, 14 foot off the ground and your balance wanted to be good and you wanted a strong back because a pocket weighs 100 weight and a half, 100 weight and 3/4. That's the old measurements. And like so, you had a great big hook like this, and you grab that in there, and with your one hand, and grab hold to the tog of the what you call the tog of the pocket to twist it up and handle it, because you can't handle them because they're up there. Hessian sacks are bone hard, like and pressed hard. So you've got to have a hook like this to grab into them, to turn them and everything like that. And then when we were using gunners, because we used to put extra 20 on, and when you were on hauling them so much a pocket, these had the side pockets on. You jam that in there, into that pocket, facing that way, and those that went into that, and that would hold them. And you'd have about 20 of those. But every man would have a hop hook. It depended on the man, what kind of hook they had. But this was the most common kind of hook. You wanted a big strong hook, like to flack it into the pocket. But like it was just a everyday skill which you took in those days for granted. You wrapped the rope, you didn't tie any knots, you used a looping system which has been tried and tested on timber hauling for hundreds of years, I should think. Like even when they were pulling lumps of timber with horses, they would still use the same system, rolling it round the one way and then 2 loops round the other, and it never come undone. Like when we're loading the hops,
Sorry, can you start with the hook first?
Oh,
is that
right.
all right? And not this fella, that one. That'd be great. Cheers.
I'm left-handed. This is a hop hook, which was a must if you're going to load any quantity of pockets, because the Hessian sacks were pressed hard and really hard and solid, so you only had what we call the toggle to hold to. So you would hold the toggle with that hand and dab the hook in that hand and just to twist them round, and you could just give it in and just true them up, because I'd like to take pride in my hop hauling and put my pockets square. Although they was only on perhaps for a short time or sheeted up and covered up, I still took a lot of pride in loading my hops. Some are eye level straight. And if you ever see any photographs of my loads of hops which I've loaded, you'll see I was pretty good, I will say pretty good, at loading them. This hook was only used if you were using gunners. But they were very, very good because like the pockets were solid. You hammer those in with your foot. Jab the one in and jam your foot on that end and jab them in, and they would really hold the load solid. And if you were going long distances, they were very, very good. And over the years, 30 years or 40 years I was hauling hops, I never had a load slip. That was there were two simple things made life that much easier, which is very often a fact of life. Simple things makes life easier.
Just wondering, I remember you saying to me when you packed your lorry that having the top sack with the name of the farm upright, right way up, was important too. Can you just tell us about that?
Well, that was just pride for the farmer, for his make him feel good factor, wasn't it? When we were packing hops, we always used to try to leave, when we put the last pocket on, we always used to turn it round, so when you slid it down over the front to hold the final layer on tight, you always tried to leave the grower's name, which is a farmer, out on the front so everybody could see it. His name or Epps or whatever, whosever name it was, he always tended to one, and it got to be dead upright. It was just a small pride in doing the job right. No, I could do it quick. I could load a load in half an hour. That load there would take half an hour to put on. That photograph there, that Arctic there would, if they could bring them the right speed to me, I could soon put them on. But like, no two farmers are the same. They're all individuals. Now, not mentioning him, no. Now, I don't expect he would mind me mentioning Mr. Burgoyne from Coleridge. He would grow hops. When you get there, yeah, yes, I'm ready. Get his elevator. Yes, yeah. Ah, no belt. He'd taken the belt off to use for something else. So he'd be hunting round the farm then to find the belt. So it was just, every farmer was different. Another farmer you'd go to, there'd be 3 men lined up, and they would remember how you put the pockets on the time before. And half an hour later, you'd have 80 or 90 pockets on, and away to go. Then you go to the next farm, and they'd manhandle them up the side. So the first 2 layers was okay, but then they'd be lifting them up to you, and you'd be reaching right down over the side to pull this 100.5 pocket up over the side to load. You'd be there half a day. So farmers are individuals, like.
Can you tell us about the number of hot pockets you get on back? I'm sure you said you got up to 100 once, whereas other people were doing around 40. Can you
No, about
tell us about that?
60 or 70 on the same similar lorry, like, as you can talk, like when the 45-foot Arctics come in, the long Arctic, 100 was nothing, but I'm talking about a standard 4-wheeler. Like 60 was a average. When you're hauling up pockets, when we were hauling them per pocket, my ambition was to put as many on as I economically could, and I like to fill my lorry. Well, I did get up to a standard 4-wheeler, which is a 26-foot bed. I have got up to 103 pockets on one load. Well, the average haulier would be quite satisfied with 650 to 60 and make extra journeys. But I would try to cut down my amount of journeys by putting more on. And if there was a queue at the hop board when you unloaded, which there often was at peak times, you only did 2 journeys instead of 3, where they were struggling, rushing round to do 3. I could haul as many pockets in 200 pockets, a 2 load, so there was take rush off. Plus I was finished earlier, I could go and do something else after. But the hop board did, going back, the hop industry really expanded from 1955-ish till 1970, because they used to be stored in Worcester, different warehouses in Worcester. Then the one year they built a new purpose-built the hop board, which it was then, built a new factory or a storage unit at Ledbury. But that's still standing, and then that wasn't big enough, so they hired the cattle sheds at Morven 3 County Showground to store the pockets, and several years that was absolutely full. So I just don't, sometimes, that the amount of hops that's grown in this country just for those sheer few years was tremendous. There was Cliffs down at Lowsley. They were growing 1,000 pockets a year. Several years they growed 1,000. Lady Wachter was growing down the White House was growing 400 pockets. And now it's shrunk to absolutely nothing. But it's making a slight comeback now, because with new varieties which are more wilt-free, it seems to be coming back. But I think it's a global market now, and I hear like talking about 2017. America is planting out more hops in 1 year than we grow all in the country. So I don't think the hop industry will ever get as big as it was back in the 50s.
So when you were collecting hops, how many farms would you go to a day?
How many over the season? Oh, crikey, girl. Personally, Griffiths is with all. I don't know. I'd have to sit back and reckon up could be 50. Sure to be. I could write them down, but it'd take me a long time. Like,
So can you just describe the hop picking season when your role came in? So if you maybe on the Monday you would get up at 7 and then you would. Can you just describe the intensity of that time period?
well, it wasn't it. We just took it for just a. You all had intensive times because, like, there was hops came in took priority through September and October and November. Then you've got the sheep sales, which took another intensity, and then when they'd all been sampled in thing, and you'd have a period when you taking them out because they were paying storage, so they'd want them took to either to their own storage or straight to the brewery. Like, so you had different. They usually all finished up by about March. They were all to their own proper homes. Like, it'd take through to March. Like, by the time everything's sold and sampled and things like that. Like, so our hop season would last from second week, third week in September, because it wouldn't start the same week as they started picking, because they've got a pocket 50, 60 pockets. Well, if a farmer only growed 60 pockets, a small grower, he'd wait till the end of the season till the thing. It was the people like Cliffs and Wildsmith and Mulver who were picking literally 50 pockets a day. Like them the people would want you every other day.
But tell us about when you arrived at the warehouse in Nedbury with your load of pockets. What happened then?
Well, you'd back on the right angles to the dock, and you'd slide them off the back onto the floor where they'd bounce, and they had special lifts with canvas sacks in to go up to different layers. It was really well designed. Plus, it was all undercover, so you could load and unload in the wet. Like, they had a great big veranda, so you just pull the first one up, take the rope off, and roll him off down flat onto a landing stage. And you take each layer off one at a time. You could just keep rolling them off, literally as fast as you could roll them off. And the system was very good. They could unload 2 lorries at a time.
What was health and safety like?
There wasn't any. There was no shirts, no high visibility vests or steel helmets or anything like that. And you walked cheerfully around 14 foot up some of the time when you were when you got a full load on. You were 14 foot high because because you couldn't get under the bridge at Ledbury because he was 15 foot and you couldn't get underneath that one. So if you had a big high load on, you had to go 2 mile round. We didn't think nothing of it. We just climb up over the cab and up onto the load and think nothing of it. Sheet up there, walk about with a great big heavy sheet. And there was no health and safety in those days. I don't know what the hell. Well, there's no. It's all stacker truck now. It's a lost art. Like, it's a lost art. It's bygone days. Like, it'll be recorded more. So I think in my lifetime than it was 100 years ago, because there's more cameras and things like that. But I think it's a very good thing to have it recorded. So in future generations, perhaps they can see back and see how everything was, how we worked and things like that.
Did you say, John, that you used to take samples? Did you used to take samples?
No, I never took any
never did
samples.
that,
No,
no.
the samples didn't come into my brief. Not at all. Like, I've seen people taking samples and wrapping them up in farms. Farms, I was their main haulier of Charles Farm. They're still in existence today, run by Hawkins, like, really, but it's still charged in the Charles Farm. They had 3 warehouses in Worcester, like down the back streets of Worcester, what we call the back streets now, but you couldn't get down them with a lorry now because, like, every person's got 2 cars and they're parked on both sides of the road down there. I went down there only 2 years ago, and you have a job to get a car down there now, so it's you've got no chance of getting a lorry down there.
How did you get your business then, hauling hops? How did you go about getting your customers?
Talk to people. known to people. I'm doing their livestock haulage and things like that. I didn't do walkers, but I went there one day and gave him a quote for, offered to asked him, went to see him if I got all his hump buckets next season. And told him how much I would charge him per pocket, which was competitive in those days because I was putting on another 20 pockets. Well, if I had 50 pence a pocket, in those days another £10 per load was a lot of money. I'm John Griffiths from Suckling. I was born on the Worcestershire Herefordshire borders to a large family. Well, I'm one of the first, so I wasn't a large family when I was born, but I finished up with being one of 11. I worked on the small family farm after I left school because we were always short of labour after the war and couldn't find anybody, and I was cheap at £1 a week, all found. Called up for my national service. I always smile to myself now because Mother said, all your uncles did their bit, you go and do yours, because Father wanted me to have deferment because as classed as a farm worker I could get deferment. So I did my national service and was promised a new tractor when I came back from 2 years in Germany. When I came back from Germany 2 years, there was no money about. And Dad was suffering then from ill health. He only had one eye and suffering from ill health. And I always remember going to the Bromyard market with my father's old lorry, which I learned I could always drive, take a few cattle to market for one of his customers. And wanted to be one of the gang. I went down to the local cafe with the other hauliers and sat there having a cup of tea, and the conversation got round to taking the mickey out of Dad. Oh, Bill Griffiths, oh, his old lorry. And I remember Chris Phillips, one of the hauliers, saying, "Hey, be careful what you're saying. That's his son sat over there." And they turned around and looked at me and scoffed. "Oh, he won't last long. We'll soon get rid of him." I didn't say anything. I went home, went back up there, had nothing to do, went back home. The next week, went in to take a few cattle for one of my dad's local customers. So when they all went down the cafe, I didn't. I sat on the fence. And a new buyer had come in to the market and was looking for Stan White, who did his haulage. Couldn't find him. He sent one of the boys down who was running around the markets at that time to fetch him up because he wanted to get off. And his drivers, he got 3 lorries parked there, couldn't do anything without the boss's say-so. So Mr. Duggins come back and was carrying on. I said, "Oh, Mr. Duggins, I've got a lorry." So he said, "Oh, who are you?" I said, "I'm Bill Griffiths' son." "Oh, right. Where's your lorry?" "Up there." So he said to me, "I've got 7 cows and 7 ewes. Can you get them on?" I said, "Yes, if you'll give me a hand to chuck the 7 sheep into the canopy, which is a box-like section over top of the cab." So we put these 7 sheep on, 7 cows in. And I remember going up the downs. He told me where he lived at Aswood Bank. Going up the downs in Dad's old lorry, which didn't go very well. It was a 22-horse petrol engine. So you can imagine going up there in bottom at about 4 miles an hour. I eventually gets to Aswood Bank, which distance didn't mean anything to me at that time, because I'd been driving all over Germany. And he said, "Oh, we wouldn't do me a favour and take some cattle down the slaughterhouse." Well, typical farm, a foot of muck everywhere. So I take these 2 or 3 loads. I think I did about 3 loads. So he thanked me very much. The next week, Now, Stan White didn't go down for have his tea break. He was stood there and got all his lorry in. And Mr. Duggins had bought quite a few cattle. And he said that, yeah, there's 2 loads for you there, Mr. White, and 1 for Mr. Griffiths here. His drivers all blocked me out, so I couldn't get in to load. But I fought my way in, or literally would have done if necessary, if I had to give way. And that's how I found, gave me the determination to make a go and be afraid of nobody and stand to everybody. And I think that small instance in my life turned my life around and made me very determined and be afraid of nobody and take them on head on, which I have done all my life.
Why do you think making a film like this is important?
Or recording the stories.
Recording these stories.
I think making these short films is well worthwhile, because history should be recorded actually by people who were there at the time, not necessarily myself, but other people who are actually there at the time, and then you get a true recording. So I think it's a very good person to do, or a fact of life to do, to have it recorded live. I don't think you can beat that for history, because histories tend to be written by can't I use the right word? Oh, I can't remember what word I want to use. Hindsight. Wherever there was a brewery, because I think Worcestershire, Herefordshire was a bigger hop growing area, or as big as Kent. So wherever there was a brewery, I hold them. London, Park Royal, which was Guinness's, we used to have a huge amount of pockets. But the farthest I personally hauled hops was Tyneside to Northern Clubs. They used to have them pressed again for transport. About once a month they would use 120 pockets a month when they were brewing their strong ale, and it was strong ale. And with the small little breweries like Chipping Norton, where they'd have 18 at a time. So Wales, I've taken pockets to Llanelli and you name it, wherever. Burton-on-Trent was the biggest area. Birmingham, Mitchells and Butlers. There's one at Dudley, I can't remember. Burton Wood, that was an old-fashioned brewery. I sent several lots up to Ulverston in the Lake District. That was a nice journey. Always a nice little load of about 25 pockets, and they would pay for a special journey, which was very nice. You could pop up there. It was a very nice experience, and enjoy the lakes at the same time. There was one particular year when Albert Brooks, I got to know well, because he used to come round and look round and say everything was left to the last minute. He'd be loading you at 10 o'clock at night. Oh, yes, John. Yes, Mr. Brooks. He was always Mr. Brooks. You couldn't be down in Maidstone for 7 o'clock in the morning, could you? And this was at 10 o'clock at night. And we'd be still loading. And I always got there. With only 2 or 3 hours sleep, perhaps. And away I would go and roar down through the night. I would do anything for Albert Brooks. He was that kind of man. Very, very quiet, assuming. Different to his foreman. He'd be up in the air and shouting and bawling at everyone. But Albert Brooks had got that very quiet manner. And I thought he was a very gifted, very, very gifted man. That's Albert Brooks. Made the Bruff. He was the Bruff manufacturing company. He was the boss. A very good man, and a very clever man.
I haven't got the idea that it went on the ferry yet.
But could you tell us about it going across the channel on that?
Well, what do you want me to tell? I don't. We just loaded it all up.
And And then it went on to the Czech Republic, didn't it? Or
Yeah,
Czechoslovakia?
yeah. Well, we only took it to far as Hook of Holland out there, and then it was put on the Continental Railway. It was to bypass the docks, really, because the docks, it was hit and miss. You never know when they was going on strike, and they would strike. But you're too young for you. You can remember it's only history now. But they'd strike for a fortnight at a time. That ship could be literally blackballed for a fortnight at a time. Well, they were gonna miss the. It was all a last minute job. I was 20. But I just come back from driving on the continent, so it didn't mean anything to me. I remember going at the last minute. There was a huge panic on because they're getting these machines out to Czechoslovakia for I can't remember which season it was. It'd be the 56, 57 season, because I was 20 at the time. And we had to get our lorries insured, went through the AA to get these lorries to book the passages from Harwich. We went from, there was about 5 of us went across to on this ferry, and we had big high loads on because they hadn't been broken down very well, and so we were deck cargo. They had to lift us on to onto the top of the deck. I can remember having taken the camera with me and taken several photographs, which it took nothing of the time, but it looks funny now, 30 or 40 years later, looking back on it. And then we took them out to the Hook of Holland on a flat-bottomed tank landing craft, which I tell you one thing, it was a rough ride. And we did that 2 or 3 times. And we put them onto railway trucks, international railway trucks, to go to Czechoslovakia. And the Bruff sent men in those days out there to show them how to put them to get together and make sure everything worked. I don't think they were 100% successful out there, because we used string to power ups to go up, and they used wire. So the machine didn't cope so well with the wire, as far as I can remember, as they did with the string on ours. But it was rather a hectic time, and we were calling them right from South Wales. Any big cow in those days falling from even as far away as South Wales to Boston. The shippers' dockers' strike came on, and they stopped it. Dead. It stopped dead. And we had 2 lorries on it, all 3 at the time, and we were completely without work. And it never got started again because it stopped, and just one of those jobs never started again. So the dockers, they don't realise how much damage I don't think those people did to the country, and how many people they affected down the line. These people go on strike for any little thing, and I don't believe it, because I think it's got to be talked through in the end. So I believe, talk it through, no matter how, because they're going to achieve nothing by striking, and how many people lives they affect right down the line. People you would never think of or dream of, the repercussions come on down. So I don't believe in great war start. I believe in great war, but it's huge men fight this and earn VCs, and Churchill was a great man, but it's got to come down to the politician. The power of the pen at the end of the day wins. Yeah, they made them over. I don't know. It'd be a bit too third hand, my information. I don't like telling people.
Yeah.
I will say it was made at Malvern. How many would they sell? If I had to have an estimate, I'd say they probably said there'd be how many round here? Francis Loudon had one. So no, well, 3 or 5 round here. They sold a couple of 3, I think, a few in Hampshire, but they wouldn't sell many. Like it's, I forget now. Even here, I forget now what the faults were. Look. But even like you say with Alan Jenkins, like he's gone a little bit too far like, or he would know. Like, if you just questioned him 10 years ago, he could have. But that's why I'm a big believer. It should be, you're doing a good job.
Machine, was it made just up the road?
Well, yeah, the fact it's still there, but it's turned into office. It's all little units now. It's still there. We come to an Nat's Cocker buying it, but the approach was all wrong. Like, you know, for the lorries, like, it's very narrow down through there, like, and it's come out and there's steep bank and come out and you terrible, you crept out there with your heart in your mouth sometimes. Yeah, we did some we stored some stuff, had some pallet when the rough lead we were packing up. We hired off the Johnsons who own it. we hired our outfit. Well, we still got some of it. We've still got one of the cubicles there. There's nothing in there. We just use it as a extra storage if we get busy, like down the lorries, like.
But Albert Brooks, he was a suckly man.
I couldn't tell you for certain. He was always he must have been he was about before the Second World War, because he was made hop powders before he made the hop picking machine. He made you still see us occasional, you know, parked under a hedgerow or something like that. The last one I see was over at Suckley Court there, the old thing, but it had rotted away. I don't know where it is now. It was grow in the butt of a hedge from Newmans and left it there. But there's sure to be one or two about, like. But the hot pick machine hasn't altered. Like, he got it right first time, like.
Quite good to get a little bit of that on film. So if you could tell us why they called it the Bruff, why the Bruff was called...
And just how important it was and how it went all over the world. You said that before really well in the last interview.
Oh, I can't remember what I said now.
No, it's all right. But
it's well, she got the money. Look, his first wife, had got the money. Look, what happened to her, I don't know. I can't remember. People would know better than I did. But she was a Brooks. Look, she was a Bruff. Bruugh. When the Bruff hopping machine is Bruff. It's and he was Brooks, like, but it was her family that put the money up. But it was his design and brain. But he was always designing something in those days. He was always designing, but very, very quiet. He just walked quietly around, like. Always wore light clothing. I don't all literally like white. Always wore white, like, you know, white dark glass. He walked very slow and spoke very quiet. Never raised his voice to anybody. I never seen him raise his voice to anybody, like.
And could you just describe a little bit how the business expanded?
and just how far.
How far around the world?
Well, I don't know how far he went round. I don't know. All I do know is they all went, like, my main concern is the ones we hold. I can't. we took later on. We took back in a bit later on. We would take them in packing cases, but I can't remember at the time now where they were just going. Like, I can't recall. Just where once they were in packing cases, you took them to the docks, and that was the end of your brief, if you like to say. That was the end of your responsibility. So you didn't worry once they lifted them off your lorry to go on that boat. You didn't mind where they were going. It's just like, I know they were going out to Czechoslovakia because we had to take them abroad, and I know the next year. We spent the whole season all in these hop picking machines. They got it better organised because they dismantled it so you could all two parts side by side, like it was a little about 9 foot right to the maximum width you were, which is approximately 10 foot or something like that, and you had steel bars across the flatbed to carry the overhang, a big steel piece of the channel, and then you'd have two fastened like together because they'd take some pulleys or shafts off them, all the safety stuff, so they'd fit within, and you could take two. But they were going by like a big ocean-going barge, Like, and I don't know for certain, but they said they'd go all the way up so far up the Rhine to get. That was the cheapest way. Because like there was not so much hurry. They got a couple of 3 months to get him, or so long to get him out there. Like, it was just 1 year when they was all behind. We took them. I think there was 2 of Froome Valley lorries, 1 of Fred Boucher, myself. Must have been 4 of us or something. I can't just remember. I have got a photograph of I took at Suckley Station, because they were going on the trains down to the docks then go there, but it was going to take too long. Look, so we unloaded them off the wagons and put them onto our, like, the railway carriages, and then put them onto our lorries. And like, once we got the ferry booked up, or Albert Brooks would book the ferry up, and it was all booked up, look, and all we got to do is drive down there and at a certain time, like, and take them abroad, and it was all laid on at the other end. We drive it to the big railway station, marshalling yard, and we were directed to where we got to unload, and they unloaded them by crane and put them onto the trucks, and that was the end of our responsibility. We came back, we loaded back up, and went straight back out again. Now.
Fantastic.
Yeah, the Bruff Hoppica machine was designed and made in Suckley, Worcestershire, and it was a very important part of everyone's life. I should think, I don't know, a huge percentage of the people who lived in Suckley all left the farms and their other jobs and worked at the Bruff, because the overtime was unlimited, and it played a huge part in Suckley life for 10 to 15 years. And when it's just that huge boom, and it played a big part in everybody who seemed to work, as I can remember, everybody seemed to work down the Bruff. They came from miles away round to work for the Bruff, and it was a big part of Suckley life.
That's perfect, John.
Perfect.